The night inside the boy's house always felt softer than the daytime. Not quiet in a lonely way, but quiet like warm breath resting slowly against sleeping skin. The living room light was left on low brightness after dinner. Golden white light spilled gently across the wooden floor, touching the edges of the sofa where the teenage boy usually sat with his phone. Outside, the street was already wrapped in midnight blue. Not dark, but deep. Like the sky was holding its breath. The boy sat cross-legged on his bed, scrolling slowly through short videos on his phone. The room was peaceful. The air carried the faint smell of laundry detergent from the clean blanket folded beside him. And then, he opened the camera gallery. The file was labeled simply, "Midnight Routine." He pressed play. The footage began exactly as it always did. The camera was placed on the small shelf near the window, facing the inside of the bedroom and part of the street outside through the glass. At first, nothing moved. Only the quiet hum of the refrigerator somewhere in the house. Then, soft paws touched the wooden floor. Not hurried. Not excited. Careful. Respectful. The dog stepped into the frame from the hallway shadow like a small living silhouette carrying patience inside his heart. The boy's dog was young. His fur caught the gentle reflection of the room light, giving him a warm amber glow as he walked. The dog did not wag his tail immediately. Instead, he paused near the center of the room, as if checking something invisible. As if listening. The boy remembered how the dog sometimes behaved when the house became completely silent. Not restless. Not afraid. Just attentive. The dog tilted his head slightly, like a student listening to a teacher who spoke without using words. Then he walked again. Slowly. Step, pause, step, pause. His path always followed the same direction. Toward the window. The boy watched the screen without blinking. Even though he had seen this footage many times, there was something inside him that still felt gently surprised every time the dog repeated the ritual. The dog reached the window. The curtain was slightly open, allowing the streetlight outside to paint a thin silver line across the glass. The dog sat down. Straight. Balanced. Patient. His tail rested softly on the wooden floor. Not moving. Just resting. The boy noticed how the dog's ears were positioned. Not relaxed completely, but slightly lifted. Like someone trying to hear a faraway song carried by wind. Outside the window, a single car passed slowly down the street. The headlights moved across the glass like two traveling stars. The dog's eyes followed the light. Slow. Purposeful. Not excited. Just watching. Waiting. The boy felt a small warmth inside his chest as he watched the recording. It was not the first time he felt it. But he could never explain why this simple footage made him feel peaceful and strangely connected to his dog. "Why do you sit there every night?" the boy whispered once while watching the video alone. The answer, of course, was silence. The dog never spoke. But the boy sometimes felt like the silence itself was trying to say something. In the footage, the dog blinked once. Slowly. Like someone greeting the night. The boy had tried to find a logical explanation. Maybe the dog heard sounds humans could not hear. Maybe he smelled something carried by night air. Or maybe it was something deeper than simple science. The dog sometimes stayed at the window for nearly 20 minutes. Without barking. Without scratching the glass. Without asking to go outside. Just sitting. Watching the world breathe outside their home. The boy's mother once joked softly while passing behind him in the kitchen. "Maybe he is guarding the night sky." The boy had smiled at that. But the thought stayed inside his mind longer than he expected. Guarding the night sky. The boy replayed the phrase silently in his head. He watched the footage further. On the screen, after several minutes, the dog moved his front paws slightly closer to the glass. Just a small movement. Almost like a child adjusting position while sitting beside someone they trust. The boy noticed something else. Whenever a distant sound came from outside, maybe a motorcycle passing far away or wind moving through trees, the dog's ears reacted first. Not fear. Just awareness. Like someone recognizing a familiar voice in a crowd. The boy felt a strange softness in his heart when he saw that. Because the dog never looked tense. Never nervous. The midnight ritual did not carry the feeling of loneliness. Instead, it felt like the dog was attending something important. Something sacred in its own quiet way. Sometimes the boy imagined that the dog was waiting for someone. Maybe a friend. Maybe a memory carried inside animal heart instinct. Or maybe something humans could never fully understand. The camera footage ended the same way every night. After sitting for a long time, the dog would stand up slowly, turn around, walk back across the wooden floor. Step, pause, returning to the hallway darkness where the boy could no longer see him. The screen turned dark. The boy lowered his phone slightly. His room was quiet. The night outside his window was breathing softly, carrying the distant sound of wind touching leaves. The boy turned his head toward the sleeping dog beside his bed. The dog was lying on the blanket. Eyes closed. Chest rising and falling slowly. Peaceful. Warm. Ordinary. And yet, the boy felt a question living quietly inside his mind. Why did his dog sit at the window every midnight? Not for food. Not for play. Not for attention. But with the patience of someone who was waiting for something the world could not see. The boy reached slowly and touched the dog's fur. The dog did not open his eyes. But his tail moved once. Very gently. Like answering a silent greeting. Outside, the midnight streetlight flickered softly for a moment before stabilizing again. The boy lay back on his pillow, listening to the quiet rhythm of the night, thinking about the dog's eyes in the recording. Focused, calm, purposeful, as if the small animal carried a secret understanding of the world that humans were still trying to learn. And somewhere deep inside the boy's heart, a soft curiosity was growing. Because he had begun to feel that his dog was not simply watching the street. He was waiting. Waiting for something the boy could not yet see. Waiting with patience that felt older than the boy's own memories. Waiting like someone who believed that night itself would bring a message carried on silent wind. What was his dog sensing in the darkness outside the window? And why did it feel so important to the small heart beating quietly beside him? The boy did not know. But tonight felt slightly different. As if the midnight air itself was holding a secret breath. As if the window was expecting something to arrive. And the dog sat there in the recording of every night, listening to a sound that only his heart could understand. The boy started watching the midnight footage more carefully after that night. Not with suspicion, but with soft curiosity. Like someone studying the behavior of a quiet friend. The next evening passed like any other ordinary evening in the house. Dinner was simple. Conversation was gentle. The television in the living room played low-volume news that nobody was really watching. The boy finished his homework slowly while sitting near the window. The sky outside was already turning dark blue, the color of deep ocean water resting peacefully under evening light. His dog was lying beside him. Front paws stretched slightly forward. Head resting on the warm blanket. The dog's breathing was slow and even. Comfortable. Trusting. The boy touched the dog's ear softly once. The dog did not react immediately. Then after 2 seconds, The ear moved slightly, like acknowledging a friend's presence without breaking sleep. Midnight came quietly. The house lights were dimmed. The boy placed his phone camera back on the small shelf near the window. He pressed record. The red recording icon blinked softly. And he waited. The room felt warmer under the soft yellow light coming from the bedside lamp. The wooden floor reflected a gentle glow like honey spread across smooth stone. Then, exactly at midnight, the hallway shadow moved slightly. The boy already knew what would happen next. Soft pause. Patient steps. The dog entered the room. Not excited. Not sleepy. Simply present. As if answering an invisible invitation carried by night air. The boy stayed very still, watching from his bed. The dog paused near the center of the room again. As he always did. Head lifted slightly. Eyes calm. The boy noticed something new tonight. The dog did not immediately walk toward the window. He stood there longer than usual. As if checking the air itself. As if the night carried a message that had not yet finished forming. The room was quiet except for the faint ticking sound of the wall clock near the door. Tick. 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 The dog's ears moved slightly. Very slowly. Like following the rhythm of the clock. Then he turned his head toward the window. Not suddenly. But naturally. As if the decision was already inside him before movement began. The boy felt a soft tightening in his chest. Because tonight, the dog's movement felt slightly more thoughtful. More careful. More patient. The dog walked toward the window. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The wooden floor made almost no sound under his pause. Outside, a faint wind touched the tree leaves across the street. The leaves responded with soft whispering motion. The dog reached the window. But instead of sitting immediately, he placed his front paws lightly against the lower wooden frame. Just for a moment. Like greeting the night before sitting down. Then he lowered himself slowly onto the floor. Straight posture. Tail resting quietly behind him. The street outside was mostly empty. Only one distant street lamp was glowing like a small lonely star touching the earth. The boy watched the dog carefully from his bed. Tonight felt different. Not in a frightening way, but in a way that made silence feel more meaningful. The boy remembered something his teacher once said in science class. Animals sometimes notice environmental patterns humans overlook. Like small vibrations in air. Like scent traces carried by wind. Like sounds traveling farther than human hearing. But the boy felt that explanation was not enough. Because what he saw in the dog's eyes was not simple alertness. It was something warmer. Something emotional. The dog's gaze stayed fixed on the street outside. Unmoving. But not rigid. Soft. Like someone watching a familiar place where good memories were stored. A motorcycle passed far down the street. The faint engine vibration reached the house like a distant heartbeat. The dog's ears responded immediately. Not sharply, but gently lifting upward. Recognizing the sound. The boy imagined that the dog might be listening to the story carried inside that sound. Maybe remembering footsteps from the past. Maybe recognizing something invisible carried by night air. The boy slowly sat up on his bed. He did not speak. He simply moved closer to the window. The dog noticed the movement. Not by turning suddenly, but by shifting his gaze slightly sideways. Acknowledging the boy's presence. The boy sat beside the dog. The wooden floor felt slightly cool through his pajamas. The night air touching the window glass felt soft and calm. The boy rested his back gently against the wall. The dog did something small and beautiful. He leaned his body slightly closer to the boy's leg. Not fully. Just enough to share warmth. The boy felt a small, quiet emotion rise inside his chest. Not sadness. Not happiness alone. Something softer. Like gratitude shaped into warmth. "Are you waiting for someone?" the boy whispered very softly. The dog did not respond with sound. But his tail moved once. Very slowly. Almost like a heartbeat translating itself into movement. The boy did not repeat the question. Because the silence between them felt respectful. Outside, another car passed slowly. Its headlights painted a moving golden line across the window glass. The dog's eyes followed the light for a moment, then returned to the dark street beyond it. The boy suddenly noticed something else. The dog's posture tonight was slightly more alert than before. Not tense. Not nervous. Just attentive in a deeper way. Like someone preparing their heart to receive something important. The boy felt a strange warmth inside his thoughts. What if his dog was not guarding something, but waiting for someone he remembered in his own quiet animal way? The idea felt strange, but also beautiful, because it meant the dog carried love inside his memory. The wind outside became slightly stronger for a moment. The curtain moved gently. The dog's ears reacted again. Slow lift. Soft recognition. Then stillness. The boy imagined that the night itself might be speaking through wind, through light, through distance. And the dog was listening. Patiently. Respectfully. Like someone attending a story that was being told without words. After nearly 20 minutes, the dog stood up slowly. Very slowly. As if the decision to move was carried by quiet understanding rather than impulse. He turned around. Looked at the boy once. Just once. The boy felt it was not a request. Not a command. But a soft good night. Then the dog walked back across the wooden floor. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. Returning to the hallway shadow where the boy could no longer see him. The room felt slightly emptier after the dog left. But not lonely. Just quietly spacious. The boy lay back on his pillow and stared at the ceiling light reflection moving faintly with wind outside. He thought about the dog's eyes. Focused. Patient. As if midnight was not a time of sleep, but a time of listening. The boy placed his hand softly on the blanket where the dog had leaned earlier. Still warm. Still carrying the shape of living presence. And inside his heart, the curiosity grew a little deeper. Because tonight, the dog had stayed at the window longer. And the boy had noticed something he could not easily explain. It was as if the dog was not simply watching the street. He was waiting for something that carried emotional meaning beyond human understanding. Waiting with the patience of a heart that believed the night would eventually answer. The boy closed his eyes slowly, listening to the quiet breathing of his dog somewhere in the house. Feeling that tonight, the midnight air felt heavier with expectation. As if the world itself was holding a gentle secret close to its chest, and was preparing to whisper it when the time was right. The boy began watching the dog more directly after that night. Not with anxiety, but with quiet curiosity that felt almost scientific in its patience. He started paying attention to small details. The way the dog's breathing changed when the house became completely silent. The way his ears reacted to distant sounds that humans usually ignored. The way midnight itself seemed to carry meaning inside the dog's behavior. The next evening was warm. The sunset painted the living room walls with soft orange light that slowly melted into deeper amber as night approached. The boy finished his homework earlier than usual. He ate dinner quietly with his family, answering questions politely while his mind stayed gently occupied by thoughts of the dog. His mother noticed. "You were thinking about something," she said softly while washing dishes near the kitchen sink. The boy hesitated for a moment, then shook his head slightly. "Just tired." But he knew it was not exactly tiredness. It was curiosity living quietly inside his chest. When midnight came, he placed the camera again on the window shelf. The red recording light blinked slowly. The room felt comfortable under the soft lamp glow. The boy sat on his bed and waited. The house was silent except for the distant movement of night wind touching tree leaves outside. Then, the hallway shadow moved. Soft paws entered the room. The boy felt a small warmth inside his heart, because the ritual had become familiar in a beautiful way. The dog walked with the same patient rhythm. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The wooden floor responded with barely audible whispers under his weight. The dog did not look at the boy immediately. He followed the established path toward the center of the room. Then he stopped. Stayed there for several seconds, like someone taking a quiet breath before continuing an important journey. Tonight, the boy noticed something subtle. The dog's tail moved once before he started walking toward the window. Not excited movement. Just a small emotional signal. Almost like preparing himself. The dog reached the window. The curtain was slightly open again. Night air gently touched the glass surface. The street outside looked peaceful. Only one street lamp was glowing softly across the road. The dog placed his paws lightly on the lower window frame for a moment, as if greeting the night before sitting. Then he lowered himself slowly onto the floor. Straight posture. Head slightly lifted. Eyes already focused on the outside world. The boy watched silently from his bed. He noticed how the dog's ears moved sometimes even when there was no obvious sound. Small movements, like listening to something carried inside wind currents. The boy remembered reading once that animals might detect vibrations through their body rather than only using hearing. But tonight, the boy felt something else. Something emotional. The dog's gaze was softer than usual. Not restless. Not waiting impatiently. Just deeply attentive. Like someone sitting beside a road where a dear friend might eventually pass. The boy slowly stepped down from his bed. The wooden floor was slightly cool. He walked quietly and sat beside the dog again. The dog noticed him. This time, the dog turned his head slightly sooner than before, acknowledging the boy's movement. The boy spoke very softly. "I watched you more closely today." The words were simple, almost childish in their honesty. The dog did not respond with sound, but his tail moved once, slow and gentle. The boy continued. "I don't understand what you were waiting for." Silence followed. The night outside seemed to grow quieter as if respecting the conversation. The boy thought about the possibility that his dog was listening to something humans could not hear. Maybe distant memories carried inside animal instinct. Maybe sent traces from the past. Or maybe something deeper. Something connected to emotional memory rather than physical environment. The boy reached slowly and touched the dog's back fur. The dog did not move away. Instead, his body relaxed slightly under the gentle touch. Warm. Trusting. Comfortable. The boy felt a quiet emotional pressure inside his chest. Because the dog's behavior felt meaningful in a way he could not fully explain. It was not simple guarding. Not simple watching. It felt more like attending a silent appointment with something the dog believed was important. Outside, a distant sound of footsteps echoed faintly on the street pavement. Not close. Not loud. Just the natural movement of someone walking far away in the night. The dog's ears reacted immediately. Slow lift. precise orientation toward the sound. The boy followed the dog's gaze outside the window. But he saw nothing except darkness and the faint reflection of the room light on the glass. The boy whispered again. "Do you hear something?" "I can't." The question was not serious. Not demanding. Just curious. The dog blinked once. Slowly. The boy imagined that the blink itself might be the dog's answer. Because sometimes love speaks through smallest movements. The wind outside grew slightly stronger. The curtain moved softly. The night air carried the smell of distant trees and sleeping earth. The dog's posture became a little more attentive. Not tense, but more focused. As if the night itself had changed its emotional texture. The boy suddenly felt a strange warmth spread through his thoughts. What if the dog was not waiting for danger? What if he was waiting for something gentle? Something connected to memory. Or safety. Or love that once lived somewhere under midnight sky. The idea made the boy's heart feel soft. Because it meant the dog was not carrying fear inside his behavior. Only patience. The boy sat silently beside him for nearly 20 minutes. Listening to the clock ticking on the wall. Watching the street outside stay calm under soft blue darkness. Then, the dog stood up slowly. Even slower than usual tonight. Like movement itself required emotional preparation. The boy felt a small tightening in his chest. Because he sensed the ritual was reaching its natural ending. The dog turned his head and looked at the boy once. Longer than before. Not requesting. Not commanding. Just sharing presence. Then he walked back across the wooden floor. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The hallway shadow swallowed his shape gently. The boy stayed sitting beside the window for a little longer. Thinking about the quiet intelligence living inside his dog's eyes. Thinking about patience shaped like love. Thinking about midnight listening. When he finally returned to his bed, he placed his hand on the blanket again. The warmth was fading slowly. But the feeling remained. Outside, the wind moved through tree branches like someone turning the pages of a silent book. And somewhere inside the house, the boy knew his dog was resting. Preparing for another midnight ritual. Another silent appointment with the darkness outside the window. The boy wondered once more. If the dog was truly waiting for someone. Or if the dog was simply honoring a memory carried inside his heart. A memory that visited only when the world was quiet enough to listen. The night felt deep. And the mystery inside the boy's chest grew gently stronger. Like a question shaped by love rather than fear, the boy decided to spend more time beside his dog during midnight. Not to study him. Not to question him. But simply to share the quiet space the dog seemed to love. Because somewhere inside his heart, the boy felt that understanding sometimes came not from thinking too much, but from sitting close enough to listen. The next evening felt softer than usual. The sunset light spread across the house like warm honey slowly melting into wooden walls. The boy's mother was cooking in the kitchen. The sound of gentle metal spoon movement against a pot carried a comfortable domestic rhythm through the air. "Finish your homework early tonight," she said without turning around. "Yes, Mom," the boy answered. But his mind was already thinking about the midnight routine. The dog was lying beside the sofa in the living room. Eyes half closed. Breathing slow. Peaceful. The boy sat on the floor near him and opened his notebook. He tried solving one math problem. But after a few minutes, he stopped writing and looked sideways at the dog. The dog had opened one eye slightly. Not fully. Just enough to check that the boy was still there. The boy smiled softly. "I'm here," he whispered. The dog closed his eye again. Like accepting the answer. Night came slowly. The house lights were reduced to the soft glow of the bedroom lamp. The boy placed the camera back on the window shelf. The red recording light blinked like a small heartbeat inside the darkness. He sat on his bed and waited. The air inside the room felt calm. Outside, the sky was deep blue-black with distant stars scattered like quiet memories across endless space. Then, the hallway shadow moved. The boy already felt warmth growing inside his chest before the dog even entered the room. Soft pause. Patient steps. The dog walked with the same respectful rhythm. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. But tonight, something felt slightly different. The boy noticed it immediately. The dog's tail moved once while walking. Not excitedly. Not nervously. Just a single gentle movement. Like someone greeting a friend from a distance. The dog reached the center of the room. Stopped. Stayed still for a longer time than usual. The boy sat quietly on his bed and watched. The room felt warmer under the lamplight. The wooden floor reflected soft golden brightness. After several seconds, the dog began walking toward the window. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The boy felt the familiar emotional pressure inside his chest. Because this ritual was becoming meaningful in a way that felt almost sacred to him. The dog reached the window. This time he did something new. He did not immediately sit down. Instead, he placed both front paws gently against the window glass. Very softly. As if greeting someone outside. The street beyond the window was quiet. Only a single street lamp was glowing across the road, painting the pavement with pale yellow light. The dog stayed like that for a few seconds. Then slowly lowered himself onto the floor. Straight posture. Head lifted slightly. Eyes focused outside. But tonight, the boy noticed the dog's eyes were moving more slowly than usual. Like someone watching a place filled with emotional meaning. The boy slowly stepped down from his bed. The floor felt cool under his feet. He walked and sat beside the dog. Very close. Their bodies almost touching. The dog noticed him and shifted slightly to create space. Not moving away, but inviting closeness. The boy spoke quietly. "Do you like sitting here with me?" Silence answered first. The wind outside moved gently through the tree leaves. Then the dog's tail moved once. Slow. Warm. The boy placed his hand gently on the dog's back. The fur felt soft under his fingers. Warm. Alive. Comforting. He felt the slow rhythm of the dog's breathing under his touch. It was a living heartbeat sharing space with his own. "I think you were waiting for something," the boy said softly. The words were not urgent. Just curious. The dog did not respond with sound. But his ears lifted slightly when a distant sound passed through the night. A motorcycle engine humming faintly somewhere far down the street. The boy followed the dog's gaze outside. Nothing moved in the darkness except the soft breathing of wind. The boy thought about how animals sometimes live closer to natural rhythms than humans do. Maybe the dog was listening to stories carried inside air currents. Maybe memory itself had a sound only certain hearts could hear. The boy leaned his head slightly against the wall behind him. The night felt peaceful. Warm. Almost like the house itself was breathing slowly with them. After nearly 20 minutes, the dog turned his head and looked at the boy. Longer than before. The boy felt that the look was not random. It felt meaningful. Like silent acknowledgement. Then the dog stood up. Very slowly. As if movement itself required emotional respect. The boy felt a quiet sadness touch his chest. Not because something bad was happening, but because the ritual was reaching its natural ending again. The dog turned around. Walked back across the wooden floor. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The hallway shadow received him gently. The boy stayed sitting beside the window for a few more minutes, watching the street outside breathe inside blue darkness, thinking about the patience living inside his dog's heart. When he finally lay down on his bed, he felt the blanket warmth slowly return around him. He placed his hand on the spot where the dog had leaned earlier. Still warm. Still carrying the silent memory of living presence. Outside, the wind moved softly, like someone turning the pages of an invisible book written in night air. And somewhere inside the house, the boy knew his dog was resting, preparing quietly for another midnight appointment. The boy closed his eyes slowly. But before sleep reached him, one last thought stayed inside his mind. Maybe the dog was not simply watching the street. Maybe he was waiting for something he believed would eventually arrive. Something gentle. Something important. Something connected to love that did not need words to exist. And in the darkness outside the window, the night seemed to hold its breath again, as if it was protecting a secret that only a patient heart could understand. The boy started noticing the dog's ears more carefully after many midnight sessions. Small movements, almost invisible, but meaningful, because the boy was beginning to understand something important. His dog was not restless at midnight. He was attentive, listening, waiting, observing the world with a patience that felt older than the boy's own life. The next day passed quietly. School was normal. Friends talked about video games during break. The boy listened but felt slightly distant, like his mind was living inside a soft memory space shaped by nighttime light and wooden floor shadows. When he returned home, he greeted the dog first. The dog lifted his head slightly from the living room carpet. Not excitedly, just acknowledging presence. The boy sat beside him. "I will stay with you tonight," he whispered. The dog blinked once. Slowly, like accepting the promise. Dinner was warm and simple. Rice. Vegetables. Soup steam rising softly inside kitchen air that smelled like home. The boy's mother noticed his calm behavior. "You seem more peaceful these days," she said. The boy smiled lightly. "Maybe I am learning to listen more." She nodded without asking more questions. Sometimes mothers understand silence better than conversation. Night came gently. The sky outside was deep and soft like dark velvet holding scattered stars. The boy placed the camera on the window shelf as usual. Red recording light blinked quietly. He sat on his bed, waiting. The house was silent except for the faint sound of the refrigerator and distant wind touching tree leaves. Then, the hallway shadow moved. Soft pause entered the room. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The boy felt warmth spread slowly inside his chest. Because the ritual was continuing. But tonight, something felt different again. The dog did not stop in the center of the room for as long as usual. He walked toward the window slightly faster. Not excitedly, but with subtle purpose. Like someone who recognized a familiar meeting place. The boy watched silently. The dog reached the window. Tonight, he did something very gentle. He sat down immediately. But then he tilted his head slightly toward the street outside, as if listening deeper than before. The street was quiet. Only one street lamp was glowing softly across the road. Its light fell across the window glass like a thin golden ribbon. The dog's ears lifted slightly, then relaxed, then lifted again when a distant sound passed through night air. The boy stood up slowly and walked toward him. The wooden floor felt cool under his feet. He sat beside the dog, close enough that their warmth touched. The boy spoke softly. Are you waiting for someone you know? The question was simple. Not demanding explanation. Just curiosity carried inside a human heart trying to understand animal silence. The dog did not answer with sound. But his tail moved once. Very slowly. Like breathing through movement. The boy felt a soft emotional pressure inside his chest. Because he believed the answer was inside that small motion. Not in words. Not in explanation. But in feeling. The boy placed his hand gently on the dog's back. The fur was warm. Alive. Comforting under fingertips. He felt the slow rhythm of the dog's breathing. In. Out. In. Out. Like a natural ocean wave resting quietly inside a living body. Outside, wind moved gently across the street. The curtain touched the window frame softly. The dog's eyes followed something invisible outside. The boy followed his gaze, but saw nothing except darkness and distant streetlight reflection. The boy whispered again. I don't think you were waiting because you were lonely. Silence answered first. Then the dog's tail moved once. Slow. Meaningful. The boy felt warmth inside his thoughts. Maybe the dog was waiting not out of sadness, but out of love memory. Something animals sometimes carry inside instinct and emotional imprint. The boy imagined that maybe the dog once belonged to someone else. Someone who cared deeply. Someone whose presence was now carried inside the dog's heart like a living photograph made of feelings rather than images. The thought did not make the boy sad. It made him feel grateful. Because it meant the dog knew love before meeting him. The boy leaned slightly closer to the dog. Their bodies shared warmth and quiet companionship. The night outside felt deeper tonight. Like the world itself was becoming more attentive. After nearly 25 minutes, the dog turned his head and looked at the boy. Long. Quiet. Meaningful. The boy felt that the look was not accidental. It felt like silent communication. Like saying something without using sound. Then the dog stood up slowly. Even slower than usual. As if movement itself required emotional respect tonight. The boy felt a small sadness touch his chest. Because the ritual was ending again. The dog turned around. Walked across the wooden floor. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The hallway shadow accepted him gently. The boy stayed sitting beside the window longer than usual. Thinking about patience living inside animal heart memory. Thinking about love that does not require human language. When he finally returned to his bed, he placed his hand on the blanket. Still warm. Still carrying the invisible shape of life that had rested there. Outside, wind moved softly through tree branches like someone turning pages of a silent story. And somewhere inside the house, the boy knew his dog was resting. Preparing quietly for another midnight listening appointment. The boy closed his eyes slowly. But one thought stayed inside his mind longer than sleep. Maybe the dog was not watching the street. Maybe he was waiting for something he believed would arrive someday. Something gentle. Something important. Something connected to memory, safety, and love that lived beyond words. And tonight, the midnight air outside the window felt slightly heavier with quiet expectation. As if the world itself was waiting with the dog. For a secret that had not yet decided to reveal itself. The night felt different before the boy even placed the camera on the window shelf. There was a softness inside the air. A quiet emotional stillness that made the house feel slightly warmer than usual. The boy finished his dinner quickly that evening. Not because he was in a hurry, but because he felt a gentle pull inside his heart toward midnight. His mother noticed and smiled softly. You really love spending time with that dog, don't you? The boy nodded. Yes. Nothing more needed to be said. The living room lights were dimmed earlier than usual. The boy sat on his bed and waited. The dog was already lying beside the sofa in the living room. Eyes half closed. Breathing slow and peaceful. The house felt like it was preparing itself for something quiet and meaningful. When midnight approached, the boy placed the camera on the window shelf. The red recording light blinked softly, like a small heartbeat inside darkness. He sat on his bed and waited. The night outside was very still. The sky was deep blue-black. Stars scattered across it like small memories resting inside endless distance. Then, the hallway shadow moved. The boy felt warmth grow inside his chest even before the dog entered the room. Soft pause. Patient steps. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. But tonight, the boy noticed something immediately. The dog's pace was slightly slower. More thoughtful. More careful. Like someone carrying emotional weight inside quiet movement. The dog entered the center of the room. Stopped. Stayed longer than usual. The boy watched silently from his bed. The room was softly illuminated by warm lamplight. Wooden floor reflections looked like honey-colored water resting still under night sun. After several seconds, the dog started walking toward the window. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The boy felt a subtle tightening in his chest. Because tonight, the atmosphere felt emotionally heavier. Not frightening. Just meaningful. The dog reached the window. And something happened that the boy had never seen before. The dog did not sit down immediately. Instead, he stood near the window glass and placed his nose softly against it. Very gently. Like greeting someone outside the world. The boy's heart beat a little faster. The street outside was quiet. Only one street lamp was glowing across the road. Its light painted the pavement with pale golden softness. The dog stayed like that for several seconds, then slowly lowered himself to sit. But his posture was different tonight. More focused. More still. Almost like emotional concentration. The boy slowly stepped down from his bed. The wooden floor felt slightly cooler under his feet. He walked and sat beside the dog. Very close. Their bodies almost touching. The dog noticed him and shifted slightly, creating space. Not moving away. Inviting closeness. The boy spoke softly. I think something is different tonight. Silence answered first. The wind outside moved gently through tree leaves. Then the dog's tail moved once. Slow. Meaningful. The boy felt emotional warmth inside his chest. Because he felt that the dog was communicating through the smallest movement. The boy placed his hand gently on the dog's back. Warm. Alive. Comforting. He felt the slow rhythm of the dog's breathing under his touch. In. Out. In. Out. Like a living ocean resting quietly inside animal heart memory. Then the boy spoke again. I feel like you were waiting for someone important. The words were spoken very softly. Almost like sharing a secret with night air. The dog did not respond with sound. But his ears lifted slightly when a distant sound passed through darkness. A motorcycle engine humming faintly far down the street. The boy followed the dog's gaze outside. Nothing moved except shadow and light. The boy thought about how animals might live closer to natural environmental signals. Maybe the dog was listening to stories carried inside wind. Maybe memory itself had a sound only certain hearts could hear. The boy leaned his head slightly against the wall behind him. The night felt peaceful, but emotionally heavy with expectation. After nearly 20 minutes, the dog turned his head and looked at the boy. Longer than before. The boy felt something inside his chest soften. Because he believed this look was meaningful. Not random. Not accidental. Then the dog stood up. Very slowly. As if movement itself required emotional courage tonight. The boy felt a quiet emotional sadness touch his heart. Not sadness of loss, but sadness shaped by love. Because he sensed the ritual was reaching a turning point. The dog turned around. Walked back across the wooden floor. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The hallway shadow accepted him gently. The boy stayed sitting beside the window longer than usual. Thinking about the patient heart living inside his dog. Thinking about love that exists even when words are absent. When he finally returned to his bed, he placed his hand on the blanket where the dog had leaned earlier. Still warm. Still alive with memory of presence. Outside, wind moved softly. Like someone turning the pages of an invisible story written inside night air. And somewhere inside the house, the boy felt something inside him quietly shift. Because tonight, the dog's behavior felt like it was approaching something important. Something emotional. Something connected to memory. And the boy could not shake the feeling that the midnight window would soon witness a moment he would never forget. The night held its breath softly. As if the world itself was standing quietly beside the dog. Waiting for the truth that was slowly walking toward the window from somewhere inside the darkness. The boy woke up the next morning with a strange softness inside his chest. Not sadness. Not happiness. Something deeper. Like emotional stillness living quietly under the surface of thought. The sunlight coming through the bedroom window felt warmer than usual. Golden light rested softly across the blanket and the wooden floor. The dog was already awake. Lying quietly beside the sofa in the living room. Eyes open. Calm. Observing the morning world with patient silence. The boy walked toward him slowly. Sat beside him. "Good morning," he whispered. The dog blinked once. Slowly. Like answering without words. The boy touched the dog's ear gently. The house felt peaceful. Normal. Safe. But inside the boy's mind, the feeling from last night stayed alive. Like a quiet emotional echo. The day passed slowly. School felt slightly distant today. The boy listened to teacher explanations, but his thoughts sometimes drifted toward the midnight window. Toward the dog's eyes watching darkness outside. Toward patience shaped like waiting. When evening came, the boy's mother prepared dinner. The smell of warm soup filled the kitchen air. Comfortable. Home-like. The boy ate quietly. Then helped wash dishes without being asked. His mother looked at him for a moment. "You are growing more thoughtful these days," she said softly. The boy smiled. "Maybe I am learning from someone patient." She did not ask who. Because sometimes mothers understand answers hidden inside silence. Night arrived gently. The sky was deep blue-black again. Stars scattered softly across distance like memories resting inside infinite space. The boy placed the camera on the window shelf. The red recording light blinked. Heartbeat like. He sat on his bed and waited. The house was very quiet tonight. Even the refrigerator sound seemed softer. Then, the hallway shadow moved. The boy felt warmth spread slowly through his chest even before the dog entered. Soft pause. Patient steps. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. But tonight, something felt emotionally different. The dog's movement was slower than ever. Almost ceremonial. Like someone carrying something important inside their heart. The dog entered the center of the room. Stopped. Stayed there longer than usual. The boy watched silently. The lamplight painted warm golden reflections on the wooden floor. After several seconds, the dog walked toward the window. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The boy felt his heartbeat slow slightly, because he felt tonight might be important. The dog reached the window. And tonight, something unexpected happened. The dog did not place his paws on the window frame. He simply sat down beside it. Then he tilted his head slightly upward, as if listening to something far beyond the street. The street outside was quiet. Only one street lamp was glowing softly across the road. Its light rested gently on pavement like tired sunlight that refused to disappear completely. The wind outside moved very slowly, like breathing earth. The dog's ears lifted slightly, then relaxed, then lifted again when a distant sound passed through night air. The boy slowly walked toward him, sat beside the dog. Close. Very close. Their bodies shared warmth. The boy spoke softly. I think you were waiting for someone you remember. Silence answered first. Long. Respectful. Then the dog's tail moved once. Slow. Meaningful. The boy felt emotional warmth inside his chest, because he believed this was the dog's answer. The boy placed his hand gently on the dog's back. Warm. Alive. Comforting. He felt the slow rhythm of breathing under his fingers. In. Out. In. Out. Like ocean waves resting quietly inside living heart memory. Then the boy spoke again. Did you belong to someone before us? The question was very soft, almost fragile. The dog did not respond immediately. Outside, wind touched the curtain gently. Then the dog blinked once. Slowly. Very slowly. And the boy felt something inside his chest become warm and heavy at the same time. Because he understood, without words, that the dog carried memory inside his heart. Not sadness. Not pain. But love that did not disappear even when time changed. The boy imagined someone from the dog's past. Someone who once sat with him under night sky. Someone who might have loved him deeply. Someone whose presence was now carried inside the dog's midnight ritual like emotional remembrance. The boy did not feel jealousy. Instead, he felt gratitude. Because it meant the dog knew love before meeting him. After nearly 20 minutes, the dog turned his head and looked at the boy. Long. Quiet. Deep. The boy felt the look was not accidental. It felt like silent communication. Like saying thank you. Like saying I remember. Then the dog stood up slowly. Even slower than before. As if movement itself required emotional courage. The boy felt a quiet emotional sadness touch his chest. Because he felt the ritual was reaching its meaning. The dog turned around. Walked across the wooden floor. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The hallway shadow welcomed him gently. The boy stayed sitting beside the window longer than usual. Thinking about memory living inside animal heart. Thinking about love that survives even when people are gone. When he finally returned to his bed, he placed his hand on the blanket. Still warm. Still carrying the invisible shape of life that had rested there. Outside, wind moved softly. Like someone turning pages of a story written inside night air. And somewhere inside the house, the boy felt a deep understanding grow quietly inside his heart. The dog was not waiting because he was lonely. He was honoring memory. honoring love that once gave him safety, honoring a heart that had once spoken to him in a language beyond words. The boy closed his eyes slowly, feeling peaceful, because love did not end with time. It lived quietly inside patience, inside memory, and inside the midnight window where a dog sat every night, listening to the past and the present breathing together in soft, silent harmony. The boy knew something had changed inside him after that night. Not in a loud or obvious way, but like quiet healing spreading slowly inside a tired heart. The next midnight came gently. The house was warm under soft yellow lamplight. The boy placed the camera on the window shelf. The red recording light blinked softly, like a small living heartbeat inside night silence. He sat on his bed and waited. The hallway shadow moved after a few minutes. Soft pause. Patient steps. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. The dog entered the room. Tonight, his movement felt peaceful, complete, like someone who had finished a long emotional journey. The dog walked to the window and sat down immediately. No hesitation. No searching. Just presence. The boy walked slowly and sat beside him. Close. Warm. Their bodies touched softly. The boy whispered, "Thank you for staying here with me." The dog blinked once. Slowly. His tail moved once. Very gentle. Outside, the street lamplight rested softly on the quiet road. Wind moved through tree branches like a lullaby written in air. The boy felt peace inside his chest, because he understood something without needing words. Love was not about knowing every secret. Love was about sitting beside someone you care about and listening to the night together, until memory, heart, and time breathed the same quiet story. The dog kept watching the darkness outside, patient, warm, and finally, content.